lead changes and 17 ties. The Timberwolves escaped San Antonio with a 104-102 win to open up the series. Now, Wemby struggled offensively for the Spurs, 5 of 17 from the field, but made an impact on the defensive end, of course, finishing with 12 blocks, the most in a playoff game since blocks were fully recorded. The Timberwolves closed as a 10.5-point underdog, according to DraftKings Sportsbook, making it their largest playoff upset since they beat the Spurs in Game 2 of the 99 playoffs in Round 1. The Spurs rallied to win that series and claimed their first NBA title that season. Let's go back to the current state, though, now, Jay Will. Does the Wolves win now change your series outlook between the Timberwolves and the Spurs?
I had the Wolves in 6. I never picked the Spurs. I think
Hold it, Jay.
Yes.
Even when it was uncertainty about Ant-Man being available, you still picked the Timberwolves?
You and Cam aren't the only ones with a lot of contacts in our industry. So I'm just going to tell y'all that I rock with some people that told me that homie was going to come back like Wolverine. And my man came back last night. And I'm going to say this. And I said this last year, he's the closest thing to Jordan, personality-wise, that we have in the game of basketball right now. And the only other dude I saw come back from a hyperextension like that was Giannis when he dropped 50 the next day in the NBA Finals. But there's something about him, S.A., if you want to compare it to 1994 when Jordan said, "I'm back," it's the same kind of fur. It's that same kind of, you almost got me cursing on national TV. It's the same kind of pop to his soul. You know what I'm saying, Cam? Like, you want to go down to Washington Heights, you want to go down and play at Rucker Park. It's the same thing all day. You're getting a steady streamline of who this cat is all the time. Now, I know Wemby has it too, but there's something about him, the way he plays, the way he played in the fourth quarter, and it can make the case, look, what Giannis came back was hard, but Giannis mostly plays north to south. This dude plays east to west. Coming back off a hyperextension, but the way he played, even though it was 18 and 25 minutes in the fourth quarter, they've been to the Western Conference Finals back-to-back years, y'all. So I know that the Spurs are talented, but the Spurs are still a team that haven't been there before. And you're starting to see a little bit of that immaturity at certain ways. So yes, that doesn't surprise me. Not at all.
I'm still just thinking about Perk talking about them getting swept, which was just it was wild.
He said San Antonio may get swept.
Yeah, he said San Antonio, and I was just I'm still actually processing that. So pardon me, Jay Will. Look, it was a 2-point game with the Spurs shooting terribly. Wemby missed 8 threes. We say he had this incredible night, triple-double, 12 blocks, set an NBA record, but he's not going to shoot that bad again. De'Aaron Fox is not going to shoot that bad. Now, I do agree with you with the inexperience and them going back-to-back conference finals talking about the Minnesota Timberwolves, and I do like their attitude. We just talked about McDaniels is calling people out by name. They're gritty, they're tough, so on and so forth. I think this game, too, is going to explain a lot, but I do think the Spurs have to have a sense of urgency going into game 2. You don't want to go back to Minnesota down 0-2. So I don't know if the Spurs are definitely going to win, which I do want them to win, but their inexperience is showing, and I do think Ant-Man's on a mission.
Well,
yeah.
When we say their inexperience is showing, I will remind everybody that they lost 104-102, that they had the last shot by Champagnie, who's shooting like 57% from threes in the playoffs. He makes that shot, they win the game. So I'm looking at it and I'm saying, yeah, you young, you inexperienced, but you was right there. The game could have been had. But give Minnesota credit. They survived, et cetera, et cetera. It did change my outlook, Jay, because I didn't know if Ant-Man would be available. If Ant-Man was available, I would have picked Minnesota to win this series. Because he wasn't available, I picked them to lose this series. That's how much, to me, he means to the Minnesota Timberwolves. I love this cat, Terrence Shannon, because he built like a linebacker, got a lot of speed, really aggressive, very athletic. He's no joke. And I love the fact that that's been implemented into things by Coach Finch, who I just interviewed last week, by the way. He got McDaniels. He calling cats out, like you pointed out early, Cameron, when he called out Denver by name. Each of them, they can't play. This can't play defense. That can't play. This guy can't play defense. Called them right out. Then went on the court and backed it up and closed them out with 32 and 10 in the closeout game. Give him him credit. Julius Randle, even though he drives me crazy sometimes because the brother going left. It don't matter what happened. I don't give a damn whether he drive right, whether he sit up there and call his family.
Let go
I
of
don't
that
give a
New
damn what
York
he
Knicks
do.
pain.
He's going left. He's going up. But I love Julius Randle, right? But he showed up. He showed up in the fourth quarter last night. Give him credit where credit is due. And if Dante DiVincenzo, I think, is a devastating loss. I thought was a devastating loss for Minnesota. But I believe in Ant-Man so much that if I knew Ant-Man was going to play, I'd have picked Minnesota to win this, albeit in seven. And that's where I'm at right now. Because he was on the court last night and because he's playing, I'm going to pick Minnesota to win this series. But it ain't going to be no sweep. You understand what I'm saying? I think this is going to be a deep series. I think Wembanyama and the crew is going to answer the call, being the young Lions that they are, and they're going to have – this is going to be a big-time series, make no mistake. I just think that Ant-Man, as long as he's on the court healthy, will find a way to help Minnesota close the deal.
Cam, let me just say this real quick. The reason why I think the Spurs were able to get up on OKC is outside of SGA, they don't really have a lot of positional size, right? And the one thing I feel like the Spurs are a little bit primed to get beat up on is when they play against physical bullies. So look, McDaniels is 6'9", Naz Reid 6'9", Julius Randle 6'9". You talk about even Ant-Man, Wolverine. He's 6'4", he's 220, right? So there's a lot of, outside of Stephon Castle, they don't have the perimeter defenders to really physically mount up like that. And you see that with points in the paint. Even though Wemby got 12 blocks, he kept most of them in bounds. Who got all those 50-50 balls? It was Minnesota. So that's something that people don't really talk about when you get into the trenches of the nuances of the game.
Well, I'm also looking at the fact that they neutralized Wemby. So it's going to be really, really interesting to see how Wemby responds. The block shots are big, but you're 7'5", you're athletic, you're mobile. So clearly that's not, you don't expect 12 damn blocks, but in the end, the bottom line is he is who he is and we expect. I'm talking about him offensively.
Yeah,
I'm talking about the way they switch, the way they always kept somebody in his face. You 7'5", figuratively speaking, not literally in his face because he's 7'5", but you always got somebody up on him, and obviously Rudy Gobert is 7'2", and then you look at the Julius Randles, McDaniels, the Naz Reid, and these boys 6'9", 6'10", 6'11". So you got some size out there. I brought up Shannon, built. You know what I'm saying? You're not pushing him around. I'm looking at cats like that, and I'm saying, physically speaking, they can, the Vassals, the Castles, the De'Aaron Foxes of the world, Dylan Harpers of the world. You're not pushing Minnesota around like you could push other people around. And that's where it's going to get interesting. I want to see how Wemby responds offensively in game 2. I know what he's going to do defensively. Offensively, how is he going to respond? That's going to tell me a lot about this series.
11 points, 5 for 17 from the field is not going to cut it.
No question. 0 for 8 from three-point range with him and De'Aaron Fox. They ain't going to cut it.
Yeah.
Or 0 for 12, actually.
Yeah.
You and I sat up here yesterday. We're like, there's no way Ant-Man plays. There's no way he's going to play in this game. 18 points in 25 minutes of work?
Unbelievable.
What?
Off the bench.
That is
Off the bench.
maximizing someone's capabilities. 18 points in 25 minutes of work.
Yes. Off the bench, being deferential, understanding who he is, but where he is, and not wanting to disrupt what the Minnesota Timberwolves were doing in the last 2 games against the previous series. You understand? You got to remember, I covered the NBA as a beat writer when Allen Iverson ultimately went, to Detroit and ultimately Memphis, and you had a zest to start as opposed to coming off the bench and stuff like that. Not to throw any shade on my little bro, but it's just what it is. Everybody ain't apt to just play a reserve role. They're concerned about their rhythm and what they can bring to the table. Clearly, Ant-Man made that adjustment, still having 18 points off the bench and having the impact that he had and holding himself accountable for missing 2 assignments, giving up 2 offensive rebounds late in the game. This is what they have right now in Minnesota. But again, they've been in the last 2 conference finals. So it's not the biggest shock in the world if they end up winning this series and going back to the conference finals. Because once they get there, we're going to sit up there and ask, are you going to lose 3 in a row? Are you going to lose 3 in a row? Because we all expect OKC to be waiting for them if that happens. Because I don't know anybody or their grandmother or their children that think that OKC is going to lose to the Los Angeles Lakers.
Yeah, I agree with you. And I think that Anthony Edwards having a chip on his shoulder, thinking he could play better, should scare everybody. Coming up here, LeBron James, speaking of Oklahoma City, has made a career of hitting game-winning shots. Find out why. There's another player, folks, here, should take over maybe for the King instead.